punk rock changed our lives.
Mike, you look happier than usual. I want you to tell me 2 good things that have happened in the last week. Why are you so happy?
Gosh, man, a lot of things happened, dude.
Just 2.
Why am I so happy? I will tell you right now, Andrew, one of the best things, and it's not a one thing that's happened this week. It's a accumulation of this idea and this thing that I've been practicing, and we've talked about it. And I'm really starting to see the benefits. And now, because I've put in the time, it happens more acutely. Okay. So, and it's just that idea of sitting still, right? So I'll be honest with you, dude, I woke up this morning and was in a bit of a shitty mood. Just kind of got on some emails and stuff and was like, it just hit with a few things and not in the best mood. Got back from dropping the girls off and just sat, dude, and did nothing and sat with it and was super present, and no time, no watch, no like, hey, I have to do this for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes or anything like that. It was literally just no time demands, no ways of doing it, just sitting and being with it and breathing through it. And I feel great. So that's one thing. The other thing is, it's graduation week, man. My daughter's graduating 8th grade tomorrow. Came off of a weekend of a hell of a soccer tournament in Orange County that got me all pumped up because they crushed it. It was like the comeback story, and they won the whole thing, took gold. Yeah, it's a good week, dude. You know?
Okay. Well, wait till I bring Stephane in on that comment. Stephane, Mike somehow managed to get in this group because he had the most epic podcast with us. And I'm going to bring it back to that, Mike. So, Stephane, do you think there's any truth to constantly varied functional movement at high intensity for Carrie's purpose? On the actual nervous system, to where I've done some studies, and we've talked about it, about 100 people. There was a whole, we use this PNOE system. It's like a mask you put on and it measures, when you're burning fat or carbohydrates as a fuel source, yada, yada. And what was surprisingly being found is that even very fit, as we define fitness in CrossFit, individuals were struggling with, I would almost say, like nervous system issues based on the fight or flight response. And let me give you an example. You can do Fran in X amount of time, you can do whatever, but every single time you were moving, your body thought it was like ready to go to war, right? It was like you walk up a flight of stairs and your heart rate spikes to like 172 and then it comes right back down. And that they were finding that actually using the heart rate for a little more than a tool, but doing the most work at a specific heart rate lower than you were doing, and then trying to increase the area under the curve there, or the amount of work you could do, actually contributed to overall health, and then even contributed to overall attitude, or like Mike's saying, being able to sit still. And it was like a really weird thing. So basically, do you think that sometimes we work out too hard and we don't do enough aerobic work? And that might mess with our nervous system, like our parasympathetic, sympathetic. You kind of see where I'm going with that? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I think if you're going to take, let's go back in time to, 2003, 2004, 2006, 2008, where the workout of the day was delivered by CrossFit and we were doing that programming. If you did that workout 3 days on, 1 day off, as hard as you could each time, maximizing your intensity, you would be completely messed up in like 6 to 8 weeks in terms of, you would see now decreased performance, decreased sleep, probably, I'm just guessing here because I never even looked at this, but decreased ability to sit still, because I believe your parasympathetic nervous system would be crushed at this point. And this is not a fault of CrossFit's programming. Glassman said this to my face. He said, you'll crash and burn if you do that. Just so people would understand, they're putting a workout in. They don't know when your rest days are. They don't know on the days where you need to take a step back and go 80%. They don't know any of that. This is the workout. You figure the rest out. And I think, especially as we get older, and let's toss the genetic freaks out there. I mean, Rich Froning sort of proved a different system, and he might have just some amazing methods of recovering. And he also might not be working out at 100%. He's just that good. But for the average person who has a life outside the gym, and also as people get older, you're probably looking at doing what I call more soft work than the blasted intense work. And I often go back to something I heard from a coach who was out in LA. I think he was up in Santa Monica. I wish I could give him credit for this, but he said, if you think about it this way, a good 70 to 80% of your workouts should be where you're focused on your technique and you're cruising through, right? You're not pushing the pace. You will naturally be out of breath. You will naturally get a stimulus, but you're really focused on every rep, your technique and moving well and that kind of thing. There's another probably 10 to 15% of your workouts where, okay, I'm comfortable here. I can push the pace a little bit. So we all know what that feels like. Like, I'm just going to go pick up that bar a little sooner than I wanted to, or I'm good on these reps. My technique feels good. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit faster here, but nothing crazy. And then once in a while, maybe, at that 10 to 5% of the time, the stars align. It's movements you're great at in a combination that you feel very comfortable with on a day that you feel great, and you throw it down. And if you think about that and do those percentages, that might be once or twice a month for the normal workout goer. I'm not talking games athletes. I always separate games athletes. That's not the real CrossFit world. The real CrossFit world is I have a job, I have kids, I have stressors outside the gym. I don't have 3 hours to do recovery work after I work out. None of that. My diet's up and down, all that stuff. So maybe once or twice a month you throw it down. The other times you're getting a good workout, but you're not hammering the intensity to the point where you're dramatically affecting your body's ability to recover. So all of that to say, in a very short response, yes, I think we work out intensely too much.
Yeah.
But you know what's cool about
Go ahead. Sorry.
Real quick, I'll be quick. You know what's cool about that, Stephane, is that soft work. CrossFit, if you do the methodology, our soft work is still more alpha than, you know what I'm saying?
Way more. And that's the potency of CrossFit.
Yeah.
You have to understand how potent it is, so that you have to judiciously apply intensity. And I'm not saying the soft work is going at 40%, but 80% of my best friend time is a hell of a freaking workout.
Absolutely.
75% is a hell of a freaking workout. So I'm not saying be lazy, be soft, skip days or any of that. I'm just saying you can't redline all the time. In fact, you should rarely redline, because I think the big point of your question was long-term focused. If we're long-term, if I'm just trying to get as good as I can at Fran over the next 12 weeks, okay, whatever. But that's not the world we live in. To maximize the area under the curve, to maximize my fitness as we define it for the long term, and then be able to hang on to that for as long as possible as I age, you have to be smart about your intensity. You really have to probably do less than what we traditionally think we need to do. You're not doing the bacon sizzle after every workout.
How well is this being communicated and taught within the affiliate?
Ooh, man. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
And
I think everybody shows up with the idea that, because who goes into CrossFit? What kind of people go into CrossFit? The kind of people we like. They're hard chargers. They're hard charging in everything they do, in their job, with their family, with their vacation plans. I mean, they don't go sit on a beach. They're like, yeah, I've got this list of 27 things we're going to do, and we're hiking to the top of that mountain. This is my vacation. These are people who come in and they don't feel like maybe they did or worked as hard as they could if they don't just go full throttle.
So then to coach that is, there are probably there's probably a certain set of skills necessary to connect with the individual and the group, to understand what story they're coming to the gym with that forces them to try to hit the workout at 100% or whatever it is every time, right? So coaching that isn't solely the understanding or the education of the methodology. There is another missing piece. Can you explain or what you think that piece is?
I think 90% of the art of coaching is being able to relate to people, understand their motivations, but also understand what they need and not what they want. So they're coming to you because they don't know what they need. They know what they want, right? And whether it's aesthetically driven or fitness driven, they know what they want. And the easiest thing to do is just do more, right? That's the solution. I'm going to do more. And that really gets you there. Because if you just did more, then you could just say, well, all I have to do to this person is push them. But the hardest thing, and this goes back to when I was coaching athletes at the college environment. Yeah, you had your lazy athletes. Those guys you just push. That's actually the easiest thing. The hardest thing is to take that athlete who is determined, who is fully motivated to become a professional athlete, make this their career, or just become the best athlete they can be. What they've learned from sports is you do more, right? You practice your sport more, you do more conditioning, you lift more. Well, you're going to run out of time in the day. And you're probably not going to get there because the wheels are going to fall off at some point. And they all find this. Now, why did I get injured? I was trying to do more, So the hardest thing as a coach is to be able to convince them, trust me, you don't have to do more. We're going to change things. I'm going to show you how to do this. But you have to trust me when I take you back a step or back you down from more, that it's going to work. You're not being lazy. You're not letting your competition get a step up on you. We're actually doing this the smart way. And it takes a while to build that trust. And I assume it's the same way, at a CrossFit affiliate. Look, trust me, back off a little bit when I tell you to. Let's manage these workouts the way I tell you to. And you will be better for it. You'll actually perform better. You'll be healthier with your blood panels. You'll look better. You'll feel better. That's what we're looking for. But that trust, A, it takes some knowledge from the coach. You better know what you're doing. And B, it takes the ability to communicate that to the person and then show them examples as you're doing it. Constantly show them examples. Like, today, do you see that? How do you feel now? What, blah, 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 and then, when there's a breakthrough somewhere in performance, do you see what I'm saying to you? Look how we did this, without aches, pains, injuries, devastated hormonal system, all that stuff.
I think one of the things, back to what you were saying about the stars and the moon aligning that one time, you could tell that you've been a CrossFitter because even to hear about that situation still gives me goosebumps. I'm like, yeah, that's how you know how rare that moment is when things align. Like, I can think of the times when I was just like, you're in it and you're like, this is the one, right? And you're like, it's going to hurt. This is awesome. But like, that is once or twice a month. I just thought that was funny because I was like, why did I just get me goosebumps when he just said that? So you can still motivate the other side of the screen. But what also I think I wanted to come back to with that sort of same conversation, which is, what you and Andrew were talking about, and I think Mike is hinting at, is sort of those soft skill parts of it. Because like, what's fun about this podcast is we're all like 20-year CrossFitters, which is crazy, right? Like, all of us have been here for multiple decades, except for Andrew because he's 7. But he's the baby in the group, but he's still got a ton of experience. But like, there's something to be said about the fact that all of us, the type of people that we are still here 20 years later, still doing that thing in various different degrees now. Because I think for all of us here, we've all softened, which is not in a bad way, but like we've all kind of calmed down. And what I think is interesting is to go back to like late 2000s, early 2000s, like how urgent we all felt in terms of like how quick we had to get good at this thing. And I think a lot of that is still predicated on how affiliates are ran. Like I gotta RX everything today. Like otherwise I'm like, fast forward, I'm like, guys, here's what you have available to you today that you didn't have in the early 2000s. A room full of 20 plus year CrossFitters. You can do this for the rest of your life. I don't know if any of us really thought that part of it through, which is one of the things I'd say. But the thing that is quite clear to me after 20 plus years of CrossFit, not personally doing it, but just as a methodology, I don't think it was really the intention, but the thing that came out of it is that CrossFit is proven to basically be a behavioral program with a fitness problem. Right? Like the thing that kept us all here is that through that work, through that modulation, through that intensity, through that experience, through that failure, through that, insert XYZ, it changed the way all of us operate as humans. Right? Like none of us would ultimately be the people that we are today had we not found CrossFit. And it has nothing really to do with our contractual potential. Like, sure, yeah, we're fitter and we can go run and do hard things together. But like, it's cliche as it may be, it's saved and made my whole life, not because I'm fitter, right? But simply because it quite literally rewired my brain. I think that's what Mike's hinting at too. And I think you're starting to talk about, Stephane, is like the true work in CrossFit starts to happen not when you're worried about how to teach somebody CrossFit or program CrossFit or train them in CrossFit. Like that's like the precursor. That's like middle school or high school. Like the graduate level starts to come in how you apply it, how you understand it, how you utilize it. And I think that took us decades to get to. But that's a big piece of it that I hate to say it so broad stroke, but is missing from the affiliate because they are so preoccupied with, they think their value potential is how well they can teach CrossFit. They don't understand their value is you're not teaching people CrossFit at all. You're using CrossFit to give them their life back. And it almost feels in some regards in the work that we do, like they're afraid of people getting out of the gym and doing more with their life and getting better because they're like, I won't be important. And that might just be my own sort of anecdotal part of it. But to me, that is a huge piece. But the thing I'm the most grateful for CrossFit is not because I ever got as jacked and tan as Stephane did, but like it literally just made me a better person. And cliche as that may be, it has nothing to do with how hard I worked out. It has everything to do with the fact that every time I showed up every day for the last 20 years, I knew I was going to fail at something, right? Like something I wasn't going to be good at, but I came back and I could get better. I could do hard things. I could overcome things. I could persevere. Yep. You just work through so much of it. And that to me is a cool part of it.
Yeah, that's the main part. That's a huge differentiator in CrossFit. I was just thinking as you were talking, I didn't run CrossFit as my strength and conditioning methodology when I was coaching athletes in the college because, might be some confrontation on that. I used CrossFit methods a lot, but it was structured like a traditional strength and conditioning program. And I thought about how long it took me to teach these athletes the skills they needed: front squat, back squat, overhead press, push press, bench press, and the Olympic lifts. Even I could get that done. I could get that done in 3 or 4 weeks. Not saying they had huge weights, but they were. That's it. We're done. We're done kind of teaching, and now we could just program stuff. And now we'd slowly add weight and refine technique as they were going. The beautiful thing about CrossFit with the infinite combinations and also some more advanced movements is you're never done learning. And when you talked about the urgency, there should not be an urgency to master a skill. There should be, I wouldn't use the word urgency, but a relishing of the process, of the whole process of learning those skills, and an understanding that as I work to get something like a bar muscle up for someone who doesn't even have a pull-up, the incredible amount of fitness I'm going to gain in just going through the progression of going from a jumping pull-up to negatives to then assisted pull-ups to then, my first real strict pull-up to then learning how to do kipping, pull-ups, and the same progressions going on with dips, this might take 2-3 years. And that's fine. That's awesome, because the difference in the person when they finally get that muscle up isn't that they can just do a muscle up. It's all the things you just talked about, the persistence, the ability to overcome each step of the way, an obstacle, all that stuff. So even if they never get, let's say this person started at 60 and man, it just wasn't in the cards. They never got that muscle up. All that work is not wasted. All that work is CrossFit. That's the process. And it doesn't really matter if you make the end goal or not. It's what you're doing day in and day out to move towards that goal. That's all you need to worry about. I think what you summed up there was trust the process and don't worry about the end result. The end result will happen, and we'll see what it is when you die. And just trust the process. Trust the process. And that's what CrossFit allows for. There's always, you can get really stagnant in some of these programs that I see out there. I watch people, they do 12-week program after 12-week program. They're always kind of biased on things that they like. They're never challenge themselves in areas that are weaknesses and things like that. And you see it, you go to a commercial gym, there's a lot of stagnation there.
Yeah.
Do the same thing all the time. And there's never that process you talked about this is a challenge and I don't even know how to overcome it. So I'm just going to take the first step. And then I don't even know what the next step is, but it'll come to me after this step. And then you just keep doing that day in and day out. And that's the value of a program, of just a meaty, in-depth, always evolving program, always variable program like CrossFit.
Yeah. I got to go back to the idea of this 80% of the time, kind of going sub-maximal, right? Like I think we all get there. And I think this isn't the cohort of people to be like, oh yeah, like we figured it out. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised, right? Like we've all had enough days in the gym to figure that out on our own. And I would guarantee you that nobody figured it out like 5-6 years in. Everybody was still like burying themselves, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And so I look at it now and I'm like, well, if you're following, we go to these gatherings and people raise their hands to say like, oh yeah, like I don't write my lesson plan. Mayhem does. I'm like, all right, so how do you just take their intent for the workout or their stimulus and give it any thought? Are you missing that component completely? And does it fit with your membership base? Right. So here we are looking at, whatever the workout is, 5 rounds of whatever. And you're like, oh, Mayhem says it's this. Well, if we go back to like how we're programming, Mayhem's programming for the best. And I don't know who their ideal athlete is for the gym class, but I would still argue that it's probably a bit beyond, and I don't know, like I'm not calling out Mayhem in any way. It's just, I would imagine these programs have that high-end user instead of where are you at today? And the stimulus looks like, it's going to take 20 minutes to 25 minutes. And are people even doing that? Or are they time capping people? Which, I'm at Roots. So Nicole has like an absolute disdain for anybody time capping a workout because it's a cop out.
Lazy.
Yeah. Oh, cool. You didn't finish. Why don't you pack it up and go home? And so I look at all that and I'm like, how do we get to a state? And I think Mike was talking about this too, but like, how do we turn internal a little bit and go like, and do a check-in and say like, this is what I have today and be honest about it and go into the gym and go, cause we've all done this. We've all picked up like 135 for a deadlift and been like, fuck, feels heavy today. And then you put on 2 more 45s and you're like, 225 feels real heavy today. And then you keep going. Like, and so you work through it and it ends up being an okay deadlift. So how do we discern between that day and the regular day where you're like, you walk into the gym and you're like, man, I don't think I have it. What do I do? How do I show up and how do I regulate that within, I'm hearing the workout. I'm now warming up. How do I check in and like talk about my body to myself and set a realistic expectation or not an expectation and just move through the class and get the workout in without being what we've all done, I'm sure, incredibly harsh on ourselves for, I didn't perform this way today. How do we get there?
Yeah. I mean, that's hard. That's really hard. And I still make those mistakes and I still harsh on myself. And that's where there's the value of a coach. When an athlete or a group of athletes walks through the door, it's not time to point to the whiteboard and say that's the warm up and let them warm up and chat with somebody and hang out. And then when the workout starts, hit the music and start cheering for them as they walk through the doors, like, hey, how you doing? And you know, I learned a lot from Coach Glassman in the time when he was around. I never got coached by him. I wasn't even up there, but I just listened when he was around at seminars or we went up there or meeting with him. I learned a lot, and he would tell stories that really, stuck in here because they were so different than the public display of CrossFit. And he's written some of this stuff where he says, sometimes you just got to go through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your workout will be for the day. He would tell this story about, well, if people walk into the gym and they look at the board and it says Fran and they won't make eye contact with you and they're not speaking and they're stretching and there's not a sound in the gym. And then you say, well, you know what? Maybe today we're just going to do some stretching and rolling out. And they start crying because they're so happy that you canceled Fran. You need to understand what's going on in the room as a coach. So you greet them at the door and you talk to them and you see, someone bounces into the gym is like, I'm fired up. You could see the difference between someone who drags in and hasn't slept in 3 days because something's going on at work or at home, or just not feeling good or whatever it is. And that's where you first get an understanding. And then you watch the warm-up. You need to take your athletes through the warm-up and watch everything they're doing and how they're moving. You need to get these cues from your athletes as they're working. Mm-hmm. And all of that. And you need to then so on a heavy day, this is much easier. On a day that's not fast-paced like a Metcon, this is easier to then I'm going to auto-regulate for you, and we're just going to modulate weight. You're going to stay here, and you're just going to do your sets and reps at this weight. I know it's light, but we're just working here. But on a Metcon, you can see pauses. You can see technical degradation. You can see how they're resting. Like, are they just resting and ready to go again? Or are they defeated, hands on the knees going like, I don't want to do another rep. There's all these cues going on as a coach that you have to, that you can pick up on to help. Now, to go to your question, how do we do this when you're alone? Man, it's hard, but I look at it as a way of from the warm up into the workout and to the end of the workout, a steady ramp up if possible, with anytime I want, getting off this ramp up and just staying where I'm at or coming back down. And that's how I kind of treat it. And on days where I really, really, really don't feel like working out, I say, just start with a warm up and let's see where we're at. And then when the warm up's done, I say, man, I don't know if I want to do this. Okay, just get the workout set up. And if I still don't want to do it, and I do that 135, deadlift is super heavy, I'm like, okay, pause right here. What would make this workout acceptable to me today? Like, what version of what I'm about to do would be acceptable to me today? Start lightening it, start decreasing reps, start decreasing rounds, start adding rest intervals, whatever it is. And I'll just make those changes. I try not to just skip a day. Just skip a day, but those are for me personally, those are the ways that I try to, make a bad day okay, decent. So.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think it's not even meant for the person that's working out alone. I think that's meant for every person that's walking into an affiliate that doesn't have a staff that is assessing those things. Tony and I talk about this where it's like, when you walk in, you're, as a coach, you're basically a stand-up comedian. You've got to assess the audience. You don't just read the jokes. You got to be like, oh shit, that didn't land. All right, I'm in Des Moines. this joke doesn't play here. You know, like, how do I, like, all right, cool. Like, I
Curse
gotta,
words don't land in Des Moines.
you know,
And
how
you
do
got to
I, how do I
explain this
shift?
to everybody. You got to explain to the person. You're sitting there. You're like, because that's so again, when now it's communication between a coach and an athlete. Take the pressure off them.
Mhm.
Tell them, no, I'm telling you, this is what you're going to do today. And tell them why, because it's not worth this. You know, we're going to go this, or we're going to do this because this is the reason why. And trust me, over the long term, it's better for this. When I had athletes, again, I go back to the athletes I was dealing with. They're college level athletes. They just want to go hard, and so you have to give them an out if they need an out. And I'd be like, no, you're staying here. Your knee's coming in just a little bit. Hey, trust me. What are we here for? You're a football player.
Mhm.
Do you want that knee to be bothering you when you go out on the field? No. Let's back it off a bit. We got lots of days to perfect this squat. We're going to back it off a little bit. I want you to focus now for the next sets, just keeping those knees out, tracking with your toes. That's what we want. There's nothing that we can do worse for your performance on the field than send you out there with pain. So just do that. And it makes sense to them. So now they're going to focus on pushing their knees up. And I got them to where I needed them because they understand the whole context of what we're trying to do. So the same thing with your affiliates. There's nothing worse you can do for your overall fitness than have an injury. If you could delay injuries or avoid injuries by backing down 5, 10, 15%, you're crushing the person who has 100% injury, 100% injury, 100% injury. And I'm not saying CrossFit isn't safe. I'm just saying when you push the intensity, you increase the risk of injury. Yeah, it's just normal. It's natural. I often quote Rich Froning, who says, I spent 13 years destroying my body. And now I'm just going to do CrossFit, which he considered safe, but competitive. I'm always on the edge of my 100% intensity. There's a greater risk of doing that.
I think I'm going to take the mask off on this statement. So the critiques of CrossFit is that there's not enough linear progression for skill adaptation, whether that be gymnastics, weightlifting, you name it, because of variance. So that's out there. So I'm about to hammer that one with this. Then the other thing is that if I don't feel my best, I don't want to just come in and do 21-15-9 of anything because I don't get enough muscle hypertrophy, cardiorespiratory endurance. I'm fitter than just that. It's taking it easy. Here's my thought. If anybody listening to this, I hurt myself a lot in life. Let's see. I fell off a one wheel and then had my arm snapped in jiu-jitsu a few years ago. All in within 3 days. I was fucked, man. Absolutely fucked. And I reread the Glassman A Better Warm-Up article, and it inspired me to start. I'm going to do this every day for 100 days. It doesn't matter. This is in 2017, 18 maybe. And so I had a sling on here. So I'm scaling the pull-up. So if you don't know a better warm-up, it's 500 meter row, then 3 rounds of 10 strict pull, 10 strict push, 10 hip extensions, 10 sit-ups, Samson stretch for 30 seconds on each side, and overhead squats. You do that 3 sets, not necessarily the row. At day 93 or 92, I was able to get back to doing strict pull-ups. And what I learned through that process is that volume was a drug. Because in that article, if you read it, you're going to get time under tension. You're going to get muscle hypertrophy. What if you now can wake up at 5 a.m., you row 500 meters, you go right into 10 strict pull-ups, 10 strict dips with 0 pain. You do full range of motion, GHD sit-ups and hip extensions. You overhead squat an empty bar, completely unwarmed up, completely unankle flossed because you've accumulated this volume. And by the 3rd set, you've actually upped it to 10 bar muscle ups. And that was very intriguing to me. So I would beg if somebody's listening and you don't get enough volume from going light in the 3 to 7 minute workout, well, then you need to get there a little early or have a garage setup where you're doing a better warm up or something that you can do every single day to take care of your exercise addiction. Because that's what it is. It's an exercise addiction that you haven't addressed in your life. But I'm not here to say I don't have issues like that. So I think that's when you kept saying a warm up, that's what I kept getting with that. It's You don't have to make this your only workout in a day. You want to get 15,000 steps? Look at Tony. He's obviously got issues. That's why he's walking all the time, right? He's battling those demons. Tony's like, fuck you. But you know what I mean? Like,
Pretty
it's
open
the truth.
about demons.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's back up then, because I think you're making a point here. The conversation or the point that Stephane made in either educating yourself on what you need for the day and what intensity, or the coach educating the athlete, is a conversation that is as old as time, right? Like we've went around and taught level 1s and level 2s for decades, and these questions have popped up and we've had these same conversations. So the question is, why isn't that happening?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and I would have to think, and this is speaking from experience as a coach, that with saying these things to other people, but not living it out myself, how are you going to really effectively get or check in and get people to do these things when you're just constantly smashing yourself in the gym, trying to live up to some level of expectation that you're putting on yourself, and you don't even know where that's coming from because it's subconscious, right? So, why are we much better at modulating intensity on ourselves now? I would have to think, one, yes, 20 years of experience, but two, we've also done a lot of self-work, a lot of deep dive into what those stories are that we have been telling ourselves for so many years that have driven us to constantly push ourselves to levels that we didn't need to be pushing ourselves at every single day. We were trying to achieve something, prove something to someone that has probably been some messaging or some conditioning that has taken place throughout the past, right? So my point to this is, like, I think for coaches, there's a little bit of a deep dive internally that you're going to have to do to figure this out for yourselves before you can really start applying that to other people. Because if you don't understand why you're doing that every day, how in the hell are you going to relate to somebody else and try to keep them from doing that every day? I think it's a much bigger conversation, but it is the result I get to after 20 years of trying to figure out why the heck don't people scale properly.
Dude, it's all addressed so quickly in those words that we know, right? Leave your ego at the door. But we don't.
But it's a contrasting thing, right? And I say this is from the old school messaging and terminology that we use. It's like, men will die for points. Leave your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's a great contrast. But I don't think the thing that we don't define and we don't talk about is what is the ego, and like where does it creep in, right? And so, like, because I was having this conversation this morning. I'm like, yeah, we say that all the time, but then yet, we walk into these, like, why don't we do a workout at some of these gatherings, right? Well, everybody that shows up is like, oh, let me check out these rings and just make sure I still have, 12, unbroken ring muscle ups. And you're like, okay, they're the same rings, dude. Everybody buys them from the same place. Chill out. Like, we get what you want to show us, every person that's ever walked into an L1 that's like, let me test this pull-up bar, and you're like,
right.
I know what you want to do. And it's like, let me show you the butterfly that I have or the skill that I have. I'm going to get upside down. Like, all of that is ego. I got to pull my shirt off as soon as the workout starts. I'm not saying any of it's wrong. I'm just saying acknowledge that it's your ego, right? And it's okay, right? It's above the line, below the line. Like, where are you? Both are fine. You're going to be in those places, but like, that's all ego, and it's okay. But we don't talk about why that exists. What is it you're trying to prove? Who are you trying to prove it to? What did you get or not get that you're now trying to show up in a way that is like, I've got something to prove. To whom? Why? Like, where are those questions as a coach, as an affiliate owner? Like, where are we getting with that, guys? Like, you're still chasing, going to the games. Like, tell me why. I'd love to understand your reasoning for that set of accomplishment. Like, it's not to say it's wrong. None of it's wrong. It's just like, does it align with kind of who you're saying you are and who you want to be. I think that's like an interesting thing, because like some of us that maybe have chased athletics or competition earlier in life, like people ask me like, hey, will you do this like little throwdown? And I'm like, I don't have it in me. I don't think I would be good at going hard like that. Like it wouldn't be fun to me. I just don't want to do it because I think it would take me to a place that I don't like. Like it's like, oh, do you want to go to the bar and shoot beers and shots? And, I'm like, I also don't want to do that. I've lived that life. It's just like, it doesn't serve me. They're different, but they're also the same. They're just not, neither one of those give me anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's well said.
I'm right there as well. And I think that line of questioning that you just threw out there is something that, well, one, like I said, coaches should have that with themselves first. You need to figure that out on your own first. I really think you should. And then, can you have that conversation, or the continuous conversations is not going to be one, with your athletes, right? And then it comes to, okay, you're following Mayhem and here's the intention. Great, that's the intention. But what is the real intention based off of what I know about the behaviors and what level they're coming into the day with everybody that's in the gym or in my class, right? That intention is only one thing, but if I know something about this person and what drives them, what their ego's saying, what they're trying to prove, I also know that they're coming in and it's been a long day, or they've been training 5 days in a row, or whatever it is. I don't give a shit about that intention, right? The programmed intention. I'm going to figure out what they need for the day based on what I know about them. But from the gyms I've been in, I don't know that I've ever seen a coach or an affiliate owner understand their athletes to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And it's also hard to deviate from the program. Andrew, you talked about periodization to start and linear progression. I mean, that doesn't work. I'm flat out going to tell you. And okay, I will tell you, it would work if you had one athlete,
Right.
You knew when they were going to peak, and you can control all the variables in their life.
Yeah.
So I can control your food, I can control your sleep. So where did we get these periodized programs from? It was from Olympic training centers. Perfect. They got food, sleep, no job. Everything is completely contained in this training environment. And still, they probably made tweaks along the way, but that's the closest you can get to saying, today you're going to lift 97.5%. Tomorrow it's going to be 82.675%. And I'm going to figure this out mathematically to get you to, on the day of competition, boom, you're going to peak. If you try to stay with a periodized program, because there's a lot of brains out there that say CrossFit doesn't periodize, blah, blah, blah. Periodization is really just adapting the program, modulating the program, effort, intensity, whatever you want to call it, volume, those parameters to match what the athlete needs to maximize their performance. Eventually, there's going to have to be some discussion with the athlete. And based
You're telling
on
me Mark Ripito wouldn't. I love, you got to have a good Mark Ripito quote of like, well, every NFL quarterback should be back squatting 5x5 at 675. That's 2 pounds a week.
Low bar, though. Only low bar.
Absolutely. I mean, we look at percentages. We say, look at the Bulgarian weightlifters. They lifted off a percentage every single day. Yes. Give me 50, 60,000 of the best athletes in your country. Let me hammer them. And the 6 or 7 guys who survive, I'll make world champions. Absolutely.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I can do that. And make sure that I have enough drugs to support the system.
Yeah.
In the real world, just because it says it's an 85% back squat day and this person comes in, it might not be an 85% back squat day. Mm-hmm. And those, like Mike said, those are the discussions and understanding you have to be willing to toss it out the window for that person. Mm-hmm. Maybe someone else is going to set a PR that day. This is the dynamics of your class. And that's coaching to me. Understanding the points of performance of a back squat or a deadlift is the simplest basic. It's not really coaching. It's just a technical understanding of movement and what needs to be done. yes, coaching is teaching those movements first, but the real coaching comes in when when the basics are done. Now we're going to get into some real coaching. You have to teach them the basics. You have to teach them to read and write. But the real teaching for a writer doesn't come in learning the alphabet and how to put words on paper. It's like, okay, now have ideas and understand how to put ideas on paper in a logical, ordered manner to convey your idea to somebody else. Take that analogy and, okay, once you know the exercises, once you have good technique, you're comfortable with that, we're never going to forget that. We're always going to work on it. But now we can start working on things like, how hard to push yourself, how to rest, how to do workouts in successive days, what to do when you don't feel great, all these things. All those things are the art of coaching. That's what a coach is there for.
Writing
Yeah.
is a good one for sure. I'm glad that you referenced that part about learning how to write, because as somebody who dealt with that myself, was like, I'm a bad writer, but then you realize, oh, it's just critical thinking in physical form. I can take chaotic ideas and put them on paper. I also want to challenge the idea of periodization, just because I'll throw my hat in the ring here too, in this whole linear progression thing. As a sports specificist in this group, so to speak, I guess, Stephane, you are too, but like, I think so much of conventional training science, if you want to call it science, comes from one flawed part, and they're always mesocycle thinking. Like, all of this, it comes from, like, most people are working with people for like 2 to 4 years or 12 weeks. Like, we're the first fucking people on the planet to work with a client for 20 years. Like, find me one other. I don't give a shit about your progression. I don't care about your periodization. I'm going to work with this person for 20 years. Like, I don't need a linear progression to teach them a skill in 6 weeks, right? They don't need, and that's, I guess, back to the urgency thing I said earlier. So much of all of this problem stemmed from all of us in the beginning being like, I got to teach you a muscle up yesterday, right? Like, now we got 20 years. And as the specialist, I'll say that, like, consistency will absolutely destroy the best progression every single time, right? And like, consistency looks like, I've been working on my muscle up for 20 years, right? Like, I don't care, right? Whether or not it's perfect or otherwise. The point is, we get a long enough time frame here. But I think that, rant aside, kind of brings me back to their part of it. And Mike, you hinted at this earlier, which is, and Stephane, I'd like to know kind of how you feel about it too. But like, the underpinning of this conversation is what's missing. We keep talking about like what's going wrong because it's missing, but there seems to be an underlying piece of lack of communication or lack of, articulation. And from where I stand, that looks to me, and I guess it's me campaigning for it now, and I'm going to bias your answer. Sorry, Stephane, but is there's so much to be said, and we've spent so much time giving the community, the coaches, the affiliate owners information and knowledge. We've armed them to know. We haven't really done a good job of arming them to understand. Like, so they go into so many of these conversations thinking that they have to have the answer, they have to have the program, they have to have the cue, they have to have the reason, they have to have the justification for the program, and they have to manipulate you into understanding why you got to do it today and you got to do it this way because this is the program, right? Like, we haven't done a great job of giving them the soft skills of saying, hey, how you feeling today? They're fucking terrified of that conversation. I have tried to have it with the affiliate owners. And like, as the person who does that with the affiliate owners for a living, they don't even want to answer it to me when I say, hey, how are you? They're like, whoa, like that just feels icky to them. And what I call this is the difference between training and coaching. Nobody has done a better job than CrossFit creating trainers. Unfortunately, we keep calling trainers and coaches the same thing, but coaches are very different because like the trainers need to know and the coaches need to understand. And like, we've got to get more people in the gym to be like, what you know doesn't matter. What you can learn from a person matters way more than what you can teach them. And I think that CrossFit has given us the tools to do that. I will say that the best thing that CrossFit ever did to me, and I'll be the first to admit, I screwed this up for 10 years of owning affiliate. Like, I was trying to teach people everything, right? Beating it into them until I realized much to Mike's point, maybe you could just calm down, right? Like maybe you could just sit with it and ask people questions instead. But like CrossFit is fantastic as a training program to teach somebody, no doubt about it. There's so much skills and tools, but there's also, I've never come across a singular methodology that is more effective at learning something about someone than putting someone through CrossFit. Like the things you can learn about somebody through an effective on-ramp way surpasses what you're going to ever teach anybody in the world's best put together on-ramp, right? Like, and so I guess back to my question, now that I've completely campaigned for it, like what do you think it is that is missing in that piece of it? Am I on to that? Or, I mean, you've got way more experiences than I do.
No, I mean, I agree with everything you said there. I think back to a couple of articles that Glassman wrote. I am a professional trainer, virtuosity, and he might have said it outright. It wasn't about teaching the deadlift. It was about knowing your people and guiding your people, and understanding people and helping them. The phrase was always, the only thing you need to do CrossFit is a willingness to work with us, or for us to work together. And that's really, you're absolutely right. As a good coach, you're always questioning and wondering. And here's the deal. I don't need to have the answers. I need to be willing to ask the questions and then work with you to find the answers that work for you. And that's the thing. It's not about this is how you're going to do it. This is what we need to do. This is the path. This is the way, because it's different for everybody. It's having that ability to find the right path for that individual. You could be coaching a class of 30 people. There's still all individuals in there. You could have a football team of 110 people in there. It's all individuals in there. Now, are there common elements across that work for most people most of the time? Absolutely. But there's always going to be little variations in there. And it goes back to that discussion about once they have your trust and once they know you're going to listen. And when you listen, you're going to come back to them with an idea and also the understanding, hey, we're going to try this. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, but let's try this. And this is why I want to try it. And they understand they're part of this back and forth process. I think that's where you get a 20-year client who fully understands the benefits of a relationship and realizes that in this environment, you can do amazing things for them.
When I think back to what that old Santa Cruz gym used to look like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember smaller groups. I remember groups of 6, 7, 10 at the most with a coach. And maybe these groups, maybe there are multiple types of classes going on at a time, if I remember correctly. You had like Nicole group coaching 6 or 7 people, and coach, Glassman coaching 6 or 7 people, and then someone else, Amundsen or somebody, coaches 6 or 7 people. It allowed you to really connect more intimately with the people you were coaching.
Yeah.
Can you do this when you have these classes of 20, 25 athletes all working out at the same time with one coach? Are you as effective? Can you be as effective as you would be with those 6 or 7 people?
I think if you work on it, you can be, but I'm not saying you're just getting better at the number of people. You have this in your mind of this is how it has to be, with the understanding that you're probably going to divide this into 6 or 7 people. So it's going to take you 3 days to get through that group. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to hit it. I don't, when I have 6 or 7 people, I hit everybody every day on all the things that I want to talk about and discuss and understand. When I have 25 people in there, well, I hit a third of the class a day, a third, the next day, and a third. So it's a longer cycle time of getting the message across and addressing issues with people and talking to them. And it just takes organization and saying, write a note today when Barbara comes in, I need to talk to her about this, or I noticed this in Barbara's workout, but she took off out the door before I could talk to her because I was talking to Tom over here. So I need to talk to her about this. Those are that's the reality of what that looks like. Is it's just going to take you longer to get all that connection and keep fostering those connections with bigger groups. It's harder. It's not as frequent. I would say the ultimate results would be a little slower as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, if any of us have to send our kids somewhere, are we like, 1 to 30 ratio is great? Or are we like 1 to 10, 1 to 15? Like, I think we choose that every single time because we want our kid to get more individual attention. And it's just it's just a numbers game at some point where you're like, I got to say something to everyone. Was it the thing I wanted to say? Did I actually get to watch a whole lift? Like, I mean, each day is different, from coaching, but like, I do argue whether or not you can have a great class within the 20s, like, if you're not programming for it, it's a weekend situation and you're like, hey, people are out the door, they're on a erg, whatever. Like, we're not that worried about what they're going to do, and again, it's probably more of what does it look like consistently?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm obviously biased. Like I'm, roots and the classes are capped at 12. And like, that's really what I've been immersed in for like quite a long time now. And it's, and you see it and you're like, we have even when we didn't have the space, we were in, 4,500 square feet. We'd split out and do 2 classes. If 24 people signed up for 5:30 in the morning, you have 2 classes. And I see other owners like look at that and be like, why? I'm like, because you're in the connection and service industry. So can you make a greater connection by calling somebody their name and like getting to them and making sure that they feel seen and heard in their workout because you only have 12 people to get to? Or are you doubling that number so that you can, in theory, double your profit, right? And jam people in and out. Like,
I always remember the number 12. It's funny you mentioned that because the NSCA, for all their faults, put out the number 1 to 12 is about the ratio, the maximum ratio athlete to coach. And so when I was at UCLA, this last time I was the baseball strength coach, just 35 athletes, 40 probably in the fall because they're going to make some cuts. 1 coach in there. It's not perfect. But what I would do was I would bust my ass to go hands-on with every single athlete. And every set, every rep we did was me trying to see as many athletes. Now I would structure it so that I wasn't watching 40 people move at a time. When you get into a CrossFit class and you do a Metcon and everybody's moving at a time, that's where that 20 number starts to get to be like, I'm mostly supervising now and I'm not really digging into coaching. So CrossFit's a little bit different that way. So I love the fact that you would bring another coach in to turn that ratio back around, especially on a day where you're doing some kind of longer Metcon in there. If it's a heavy day and you have 20 people, this is what kills me is if you go to a CrossFit gym and there's 20 people in there and it's a heavy day, there's 20 bars. There's 20 bars set up. It's like lift with someone. How about we go 5 people to a rack or 4 people to a rack? You need your rest. So now if I go 5 racks, I've got 4 people to a rack. I'm watching 5 people maximum at a time move.
And you control the interval.
Ways to do that. Absolutely.
You're the coach. You guys lift on the 0. You guys lift on the 30.
Totally. Yeah. We're not going again, until everybody's done and the weights are set for the second set. There's things like that you can do. But I do understand you got a class of 20 and it's, I don't know, something longer, a longer Metcon in there. I'm not going to say Cindy because that's not complicated enough, but something that's in the 15 to 20 minute range with barbells and some complex movements in there. Yeah, I'd want another coach in there with eyes on, and because there should be constant chatter and understanding what's going on, not just to coach the movements and technique. Yeah, that's a big part of it, hands-on that, but it's just to see what's going on. That
I
person
think
hits the pull-up bar and I'm stripping weight because I know what's going on. I didn't miss the fact that, whoa, they're really struggling with that load or whatever. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
no, I was gonna say I think that's the big point, and this goes back to what Tony was saying earlier. I think strategically we could figure out how to train 20 people, right? Based off of how I set up the class, putting people on bars, whatever it is. That way I can see more people. I can give cues to more people. I can correct more people and all those things. But how can I connect with all those people, right? How can I coach those people? How could I assess what's going on as they're walking in the door, during the warm-up, all those things? How can I talk to them afterwards? Because like you were saying earlier, Stephane, you can get people to, scale. You can get them to do less weight. Maybe they're not doing as prescribed weights, or they're not going heavy that day, or whatever it is, and they may listen to you. But how do they walk out of the door? How do they have the conversation with their buddy who just came in? Oh, I had to scale today. I didn't do it as RX. I didn't do it the way I was supposed to. Like what's going on in their heads as they're leaving the door? They might listen to you, but what happened to them? What happened?
Yeah.
You never know when that moment, that light bulb moment or groundbreaking moment will be. And you sometimes they'll tell you years later and you're like, oh, that was just a quick comment I made to you. But the more times you can have that interaction, the more chance is that you have that impactful moment on them. And I do want to say, Tony said what was missing. I don't think there's stuff that's missing that we can always refine and be better. I mean, that the CrossFit open source model was, we'll take any idea that works. And that's not just like where you put your feet on a deadlift or where you put your hands on an Olympic lift. That was, how do you impact people's lives? How do you coach them? What kind of things what kind of communication do you have with them? How do you talk to them about nutrition? All that kind of stuff. When I go to affiliates, yes, I'm critical of certain things that I see, because I expect if someone came to my gym and was watching, my athletes work out, they'd be like critical of what they were seeing. But I always give the affiliate the benefit of the doubt, because I'm seeing a snapshot. So what does it look like in 6 weeks from now? What does it look like in 6 months from now? What does it look like in a year or 5 years? If they're constantly improving, man, you're going to see a huge difference. But even today, I go to an affiliate and I'm always astounded by what people can do. What your regular middle-aged mom who has a career, who's taking care of a family, who's got all the other pressures of life going on, and you look over and she is snatching, 95 pounds, 135 pounds. I mean, going over and doing pull-ups. This just is not normal. You go to a global gym, a 24-hour fitness or anything like that, and you won't see any of that.
No.
The capacity that's being built in CrossFit gyms is unbelievable. And I'm reminded about that every time I go to an affiliate, and I'm like, oh man, look at that person. That's pretty awesome. Older people, younger people, whatever it is. So we can always make it better. And I think a good coach is always looking for that way to make it better and improve the experience and the results for their athletes. But damn, there's some good stuff going on still.
There is. I hate to be Krampus, but 4 guys I love here. If I can win, Jay's probably pissed. He's probably like, "Fuck, I was about to end it right there." Sorry, Jay.
That was perfect.
It was.
We just go back to this timestamp.
Yeah. Well, I let 1 to 12 Carrie's point, and Stephane. Full disclosure, Stephane, works in the seminar department. I did for 10 plus years, and now I solely work with affiliates. You guys, we can talk about this all day long, but affiliates are closing left and right because they cannot get their balance sheet correctly. I'm not just saying this is the sole reason, right? Come to one of the summits, you're going to hear a lot more and dig in a lot deeper with Tony and Carrie, but ultimately their passion for coaching might be hindering their bank account. And I learned a lot from Greg. I have a lot of disagreements, The number one disagreement is just on about money and how business operates. And I don't believe that the enemy is big soda. I believe the enemy is printing ungodly amounts of money. And there was someone so smart and elegant, probably could have looked into that side of it versus anything, but we needed an enemy. So the problem right now is you need 30 people in a class to fucking survive.
Yeah.
And other people who have figured out how to get 50% of our results have maximized that in a playbook, in a franchise, in XYZ, and they are eating the lunch. So I think the next revolution of the evolution is to find gyms who have kept the passion of coaching and who have exactly what Mike G just said, have figured out like, well, fuck, guess why? What I tell affiliates all the time, like, you're doing mayhem, like, this is cool, I love mayhem. How does your gym work? Right? Like, so let's start to think about how many people you're going to get into a class, because I always tell people you should program to your gym. You should maximize, well, how am I going to be able to coach effectively enough to validate that I have an amazing product and get the most people in the room to survive? Because if you want to do high, quality personal training, you're going to have to switch up. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but you're going to have to switch your business model up. If you want to just have a place where people are coming to do an open gym all the time, you're going to have to switch your business model up. So that's just, it just sucks, because in a perfect world, people pay $400 or $500 a month for this membership, and you only have, X amount of people that you see every day or whatever. But shit, in California, that'd be like $900. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they would really need to be paying, because increase in rents, inflation, all these things are affecting our small businesses. And yeah, it sucks, man.
But that starts with belief, right? In that they feel that the knowledge they've acquired and their application of said knowledge is valuable. And that part of that message is CrossFit putting that out and saying, like, here's the highest attainable, role that you can be as an affiliate owner, and making that look a certain way. And I'm not saying that's all CrossFit's work to do, but at a time, and Tony will talk, lengthy about this, like the aspirational identity of, in the CrossFit space, like, who is that, right? For a long time, it was all of you guys. You guys were all on seminar staff, traveling around, and everybody wanted that job. If you were a coach, that was the thing you wanted to do. Is it now? I would argue absolutely not. And not because it's not like an amazing thing to do and that you don't get to reach more people, because I think that's where we all started, right? Like, we all trained ourselves. And we were like, this is cool. I'd like to do this for other people. And then we went bigger than that. And we were like, how do I reach more people? And then, it was like, oh, I should own the gym. And then how do I make it bigger than that? And like, well, let's start a podcast. I don't know. So we just kept trying to expand that. Like, how do I increase my reach to like get people to think about like things in a new way? And you get far enough down that rabbit hole, and it's like, how do we do any of that? Like, how do we work with people beyond like our initial thoughts here? And like, I just want to help people. I totally lost my train of thought there, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like, where do we go from here?
Sorry, I was just trying to say that to get everyone to talk about Bitcoin. That's it. I was just trying to. Tony knew it right away.
I knew exactly where that was going. And I was like, don't touch it. Don't you touch it. He's going to take it back to crypto. Andrew will always find a way to get it back to crypto. I mean, I know where you're going with it, Carrie. And I think that, to bring it back to how Stephane just kind of summed it up in closing, like the thing that will never, ever be lost. I mean, I say this usually every time I speak to the gatherings, is that, all of us on this, and even you, Carrie, we've all had the ability to travel the world and speak to hundreds of rooms of people, all of which were full of people there to help somebody else. And inside every single affiliate, even when it's done absolutely terribly, it still works. And it still works way better than anything else on the planet. To Andrew's point, the days of that being enough to protect your business are absolutely in danger. And, it's time that, the cheese dick brands have done a good job. They've brought money to the conversation, and business 101 is you never want to be first to market, and CrossFit was first to market because second to market gets all the advantage, and all that takes is money. If you got a big enough check, you don't have a problem, and all they needed to do was outspend every one of us. And it was easy to do because we had 17,000 affiliates doing amazing work and making no money. So it was really easy to come in and be like, copy what works and throw money at it because they can't beat us at that. What has to happen now really is that we have to double down, and this is really what I always talk about. We have to double down on what they can't copy, and that is the unscalable part of CrossFit, and that is the individual application of every single affiliate. Every affiliate is meant to be different by design, not the methodology. That should be the same, but how you apply it, how you implement it, how you communicate it, how you develop it, how you sell it, that's all meant to be individual, not to be standardized. And like, to the point of Andrew, like, yeah, it could be a balance sheet thing, but your balance sheet is broken because you can't articulate your value proposition. Because your value proposition is the same as, well, whatever, 13,000 affiliates that are all struggling with the same balance sheet. So congratulations, we've all adopted everybody's balance sheet. If we're going to get better, it's not looking at accounting or looking at crypto. Sorry, Andrew. Right? It's just looking at like, hey, what makes my affiliate unique? We know what makes it the same. I talk about this every single weekend. There's things that are undeniable, they're unarguable, and they can't be changed. And that's the methodology. That's law for us. You know, that's the thing, what we've been talking about this whole time. The other stuff, which is what it means to be an affiliate, the application implementation, that's the future of it. But to Stephane's point and his powerful close, like, I've never seen, and I have met with hundreds and spent thousands of hours. I've never seen an affiliate do it bad. I've seen them be able to do it better. And by bad, I mean, they still are beating everybody else. Every one of those cheese dick brands who's copied us, we still produce more fitness. We still give more lives back. We still do everything better than them, except for throw a party. That's it. Right. And so like, that's the point of it. And, you know, I'm glad that you brought it up. I'm not saying I shouldn't have said what's missing, what needs to be added, right? The thing that, because there's nothing missing from the methodology as we know it, because to build the world's greatest training program and the world's greatest training team and the world's greatest team of training creators, CrossFit's crushing it. We just have to, we got to build on the legacy that we've created. And I think that that's the piece that's missing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I also think you can learn from those cheese dick brands because, I mean, I hate even that terminology because I know a lot of people that go to these other places and guess what? They love it. They love it. So they're doing something right. Like, so what are they doing right? I mean, it's trying to figure that out too. And I know we joked around about I know we have to go here in a second too, bringing High Rocks in this conversation. I always see these comparisons all the time of like a CrossFit athlete compared to a High Rocks athlete and how much more badass a CrossFit athlete is. Who the fuck cares? Who cares? The High Rocks athlete is doing what they love and they're there and they're within a community and it's like keeping them fit and they're actually going out there and exercising. Why would you even, why are we comparing this shit? Like, I'm just happy people out there doing things. And I think it's like, I think we can stop thinking that we know it all and start saying, how can we learn from everyone else now that's in this business doing this stuff? That being said, I will also say this, you know, we all talked about linear progressions and all those things. And I will say there's nothing wrong with going after those things. What I've noticed throughout my time with CrossFit is it is now given me the ability to do whatever the fuck I want.
Yep.
Whatever I want. I've gotten way more out of a linear progression in my 40s than I ever have because I know why I'm doing it now, right? And I have a baseline level of fitness to put it on top of. And hey, I want to see how high I get my back squat in the next 6 months. Let's figure this out. And I have a goal and there's a reason why I'm doing it. This level of fitness has allowed me to actually stop doing CrossFit as much and do whatever the hell I want outside. Go tackle on anything, 50Ks, hikes up mountains, whatever the hell it is. Like, it's a beautiful thing. It's not that we have to sit here and do CrossFit within the gym 5 or 6 days a week for the rest of our lives.
No.
So we can, like, we've hammered ourselves and we've climbed this hierarchy to get to the point. We've learned so much about ourselves that now we can go apply it into other things. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this program. And that's something that we should be educating people with a lot more. And it is in the actual definition of fitness, but
That's the whole point of it. Yeah.
we actually, apply that and get people to do that stuff. Hey, you've been in here, for the last few years, every single damn day, go do something with this, right? It has bought you freedom. It has bought you freedom and adventure. Like, go apply that shit. Go out there and do something. Like, nobody cares about your frame time anymore. You're 47 years old.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
No, that's the whole point of CrossFit. It's not the games, it's not regionals, it's not any of that stuff. It is, what are you going to do with this?
What are you going to do with it?
And at the drop of a hat, what I like about it is I don't have to train 6 months to go on that 50K thing. I'm going to add a little bit of running to my current training. And then when did you say it was? Yeah, I'll sign up today. We're good.
That's pretty much.
It's like you just got to walk a lot. You just do a lot of CrossFit. Yeah. You only got to walk to train for endurance.
Because that sounds, I don't know, trivial maybe, but let's look at the other spectrum of their life. Hey, do you want to go with the kids to Disney World? Oh, I can't walk.
Yeah.
How am I going to do that? I can't walk a day with the kids. Or, do you want to go to the kids' soccer game? I can't even get out of the car. These are real problems people are having. This is when life gets small like this. Your life's pretty much over when you can't walk to the soccer field or walk across the soccer field to the game. You can't walk up the bleachers to the football game to watch your kids play. Your friends are going on a 5K walk for whatever charity, but there's no chance that you can do that. Those are the, Mike, you're talking the nice high-end application of CrossFit when you've been doing it and you have that capacity. There's so many people out there who at our age right now simply can't even do those little things. Those are the people, get them in a gym. Get them in a gym and start with an air squat to a 24-inch box and see where you can take it in the next 2 years, and that's going to change some lives right there. It's not flashy. It's not glamorous, and no one's going to put that on social media, but that is the thing. So they have a choice. They can walk into a CrossFit gym and start with that tiny little air squat, or they can go to another gym and sit in a machine. Well, let's see who wins that. Let's see who wins that one. I think CrossFit wins that one. I think we can take that person who has no capacity today and give them a full life back faster and better than pretty much anyone.